Are you a leader, manager, entrepreneur, business owner, or knowledge worker? Are you leading people or wondering how to be a better leader in your own life and work? If you are, then you can be experimenting better. Welcome to The Experimental Leader, a podcast that takes a look at the ways leaders are experimenting in their own work. Hosted by Melanie Parish, we dive into real-life conversations about how people might be using a scientist's mindset and experimenting in their work. Shift your leadership into something that works better. Join us on The Experimental Leader today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie Parish. It's great to be here with you live today. I am super excited to be here with you. And I've been thinking about sort of roles and ways of leading. And I've been thinking about when would you want to be a dictatorship? Sort of when would you want to make autonomous decisions for yourself and your organization? And when would you want some kind of advisory board or some way of making decisions with others? And I've been having conversations with clients and all sorts of people about this. And I'm sort of realizing that when you're in the land of the unknown, it's really nice to have others. And it might be scary when you don't know exactly what you're doing. And it can be so useful to have others to talk it through with, others to ask questions, and to just think about the implications of decision making. If you're trying to make a decision about what you do and how it'll impact customers, having a variety of viewpoints can be really powerful. If you're sometimes in business, we have feelings. And when we have those feelings, sometimes it's useful to have other people to bounce off of so that we don't make what I call burn the house down decisions, where you get so mad that you just do something that will have long implications. But if you can debrief with a team, it can be so useful. So I've just been thinking about all these things. On the other hand, the beauty of a startup is sometimes how fast and nimble they can be in decision making when they have something complex they're trying to go forward with. And they don't want to have a pile of people to work through every decision with, because they want that nimbleness. They want to thread their vision through an organization. And in those cases, sort of being the boss, taking that vision forward, having the agility of being one can be also very powerful. So that's what I've been thinking about. And I'm curious where you as a leader find it useful to make the decision, and where you find it useful to have others to make decisions. What are the things happening on the ground that have you think about decision making in one way or another? I am super curious about that. And I really challenge you to start to choose the path you want so that you get the outcomes that you want. Both are okay and valid. And when are they useful to you as a leader? And I am super excited about our guest today. Our guest is Lee Davy, who's an inspirational author, creator, speaker, retreat host, and breathwork specialist and leader in global health. He's the co-founder of Connected Community, the steward of Unified Alliance, and founder of 5D Breathwork, and co-creator of the Breathwork Atrium. And Lee has worked with clients one-on-one and with groups all over the world for more than 20 years. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for having me. I loved your introduction and just what you're up to in the world, and feel very honored to be here to have this chat with you today. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's so exciting. I can't wait to talk to you more. I think I'm pre-fascinated, I have to say, by this topic. So, and I can tell you why more later. And we're also doing book club this year. And so we're talking about chapter 6 of my book, which is Testing Bottlenecks. And I just wanted to read a little bit to kick off a conversation. In short, the best way to manage constraints in your organization is to spend most of your time managing bottlenecks. let's consider an example from manufacturing. The process of making a car involves building the frame and doors, assembling the drivetrain from its components, installing the interior and the windows, and so on. And each of these individual processes could be a site for experimentation. According to the Toyota website, it takes 17 to 18 hours to make a car, and there are about 30,000 parts in each. And if you wanted to speed up production and improve efficiency, you wouldn't need to make every part faster. You could simply focus on the part that takes the longest, because that would be your bottleneck. The bottleneck is the point which the throughput of the process is constrained or limited. So I wanted to read that. And I think it might be, bottlenecks might be interesting around breath work. I don't know. Did you have any, I don't know if you were able to look at this, but I was curious whether it applies to the work you do.
I did, and I was tuning into that, and I think for me, the end of the chapter of the self-care is what really kind of popped up for me of maybe the most important component, because I feel like, especially in whether it's service or business, or oftentimes we can go into such a place of self-sacrifice, self-sacrifice for the greater good, or no, like I've got to meet this deadline, or whatever it is. And so to be able to be tuned into ourselves enough to be like, you know what, I actually need a little more sleep, or I need to do some movement. I need something to clear my mind and maybe take a little bit of a break so that I can come back, with a fuller cup, with a fresh perspective to whatever it was that I was tending to. And it's so cliche to say you can't pour from an empty cup, but it's true. Right? So to me, that was really, really profound. And that in and of itself, I feel like can change a bottleneck, because if you're tired or distracted or whatever it is, then you're not going to be as efficient at whatever it is that you're tending to, right? So letting go of the idea of self-sacrifice to come into like a noble sense of self-firstness, to make sure that my cup is full so that I can do whatever I'm doing at the highest of my ability and capability, so that I'm not slowing things down.
Well, and Eliyahu Goldratt, who is one of the gurus in manufacturing and on constraints management and bottlenecks, always said that management attention was the biggest bottleneck in North America. And so self-care is actually one of the biggest ways to improve your attention, is to deepen your self-care so that you can, so that you have more of you to focus. And so you've identified exactly why it's, that place that is, I love the idea of noble, giving, what did you say? Noble?
A noble sense of self-firstness. It's not selfish.
Yeah, noble sense of self-firstness. I love that so much. It's like, because it's not selfish. And
no.
I've worked with so many leaders who get caught up in that with their teams, that, when they do self-care, their teams think they're out and they're not working, and they get, they're like, oh, well, they're just off vacationing, and it's not that. My team actually is like, I'm on a trip right now, and they're like, you need to go on a trip. We need new ideas. And they get super excited when I take care of myself, which I love, because they think I'm better at my work when I come back. And so noble self-firstness. Well, I want to dive in. That's, thank you for talking about my book for a minute. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for writing it.
Do that, yeah. And I'm really curious about what you're up to in your life and work. How are you experimenting? I'd love to know more. And
yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So I've been on this self-discovery journey for a really long time. around like 13, I remember just asking questions like, who am I? What, like, why am I here? What is all this stuff? How do I fit into this world? You know, feeling really alone. And it's really been a 30 plus year journey of kind of putting the pieces of my puzzle together. And I feel like, you know, and obviously the health and wellness aspects and, you know, breath work and movement and detoxification and supplementation and really understanding kind of the neurophysiological aspects of it all, like how this beautiful machinery, you know, that we reside in actually works. And it's like all of the struggles and all of the, you know, the things that I've gone through and obstacles. What I've discovered over this time is that I'm not the only one. You know, at a fundamental level, we're all the same. And so, you know, as I've gone through my journey, it's really become more clear that, you know, if I can provide examples or tools for others on the same journey to help to clarify their mind, to be more, you know, in balance, in peace, healthy, have more energy, you know, these different aspects of you know, what allows us to go into business or go into, you know, our purpose at a higher level, then that's what I wanted to do. So, you know, I owned and operated a gym for a number of years, but really found that was only such a small fraction of it all, you know. And instead of like health and wellness, I speak to it as health and consciousness, you know. And it's like as we feel better, as we have more energy, it raises our capacity to create a higher level of present moment awareness. And in that higher level of awareness, it's like we're able to tune into maybe the more subtle energies that we wouldn't necessarily be able to perceive if we're like really, you know, in our mind all the time and running around and, you know, tending to all of the material world things, if you will. But it's a very scientific process, you know, of actually rewiring our brain patterns and rewiring, you know, how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. And, you know, so using and leveraging all those tools and just a real passion to support others in their journey has now moved into really focusing on like different forms of self-mastery, if you will, right? So all the tools that I mentioned, as well as creating a breath work. So I was gifted something called 5D breath work, which is kind of a whole like meditative practice / journey that you move into. And again, just taking regular, deep, intentional breaths can change your neurophysiology, you know, to such a degree that you just feel better, you have more energy, you know, and so there's so much science backing that. And this year we're launching the Breathwork Atrium. So of the teachers that have come through the Breathwork training, there are 6 of them that have really felt called to co-create this atrium. And essentially it's an academy whereby we're going to be able to support 2 streams of memberships. You know, one is just like a lawyer can become partner in their firm, we're going to bring along other breathwork facilitators that can actually become a partner in the organization. Right. So, and just this idea of really doing things differently, especially in business, as, you know, instead of continuing to be a hierarchical top-down kind of approach, it's like this is not a me thing, it's a we thing. And so sorry.
For those of us who don't so I'm a swimmer, and so I mess with my breath all the time, which is different than what you do, I think. But I still find it amazingly, you know, interesting and fulfilling to, you know, I'm old and chubby and I still can swim like 25, yards or meters without taking a breath. And I play with breath all the time because I think it's interesting and because it's shocking to me that I can do it so easily because I've been swimming so long. And I just started playing with it maybe a year ago. Like I didn't know I could do it. I had been swimming and then I started to hear my sons are competitive swimmers. And so they do a lot of hypoxic swimming. And so that's sort of where, my interest lies, which is why I said I was fascinated by this topic. And, but then I started doing it and I was like, wow, and it's interesting to me, I usually swim every 4 strokes, but then I can easily swim every 6. And then I realized I could easily swim every 10. And I don't know what's going on. Like I actually don't even understand, but I am fascinated that it's not hard and it's playing with breath, and I don't know anyone who I would talk to, but it might be you. And so I don't know. What do you make of all that?
I love that you said playing with it because that's like I did one session with a friend who was trained, and literally I just started playing with it, so if you really intentionally focus on the deep cyclical breaths, it doesn't matter if it's in through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the mouth, out through the mouth, and again, just playing with that. What's happening is we're automatically lowering our CO2 levels, and therefore inflammation within the body, and the oxygen within it moves from, like, it typically sits around 96-97%. It goes up to 100%. But what happens is when you're doing the breath holds, the oxygen actually binds to your red blood cells. So your cells are what become hypoxic, which means they don't actually necessarily need the oxygen. And it kind of sounds funny to say, right? And during that period, it's like that's when they're recycling, repairing, your proteins are recycling, and any like malformed or precancerous cells or anything like that are literally like rejuvenating within the system. So it's and there's so much more that happens. Like there's beautiful, incredible chemistry that's released into the system, and the thinking mind really kind of quiets, and shuts down. So you move into this beautiful, coherent, meditative brainwave state. So there's really so many incredible benefits to it. And, as you're continuing to play with it with the swimming, I think you're finding that, like you said, it's easier to do that. And it's because the cells are fully oxygenated. And if you set aside 15 to 20 minutes every day and you do this, you're going to actually create mitogenesis. So the mitochondria within the cells are going to increase, and that's how we generate energy for the body.
So how would someone do this? Like if I weren't in a pool, I mean, swimming kind of keeps me honest because you're either breathing or not breathing in swimming, but I don't know how I would create this, at home on land, so to speak. How would someone do this that had never done this before? So,
I mean, I do offer a free session every Tuesday, actually. But if you didn't have any teachers around and you were just like, so I would start by putting my hands on my belly, right? Because you want to make sure that, like, most often, again, we're not taught this. So the average person breathes really short and shallowly and from the chest, right? And you can even, like, if I were to talk like this and taking these short, really, it feels anxious, right? Like even that perception. Whereas if you're putting your hands on your belly and your intention is to fully, deep, diaphragmically breathe, then all of a sudden, so you're filling your lungs to their capacity and your diaphragm to its capacity. And again, you just, like, I would put on some binaural beats, a little bit of like brain coherence music, and just close my eyes, because it becomes an internal journey, and just do 30 to 40 to 50 breaths of and then you play with the holds. Sometimes you hold on the exhale, sometimes you hold on the inhale. And oftentimes I'll do both within a round. So we'll do a number of breaths, maybe 40 breaths. And then the last one, we'll take it in to the brain and really focus between the eyes on the pineal gland, which sits in the center of the brain. Do a hold, 5 to 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. Exhale and hold at the bottom for as long as you can. And again, because of the cyclical nature of the breath and the kind of the superoxygenation of the cells, then the hold at the bottom with perceived no air in the system will be a lot longer than you would anticipate. So people can hold their breath with no breathing, with no air after a couple of rounds for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Interesting. And do people have to worry about, I'm just going to ask all the dumb questions because, I will. Do people need to worry if they like pass out, or like, is there any fear of will they harm themselves in any way by doing this?
So most people, I think there's a potential that could happen. So you definitely don't want to be standing when you're doing it. But I really believe, like, if I don't feel dizzy, if I don't feel like I'm kind of like the pineal gland, there's all kinds of science around it as being like the first eye and opening up, and the kundalini rising from the which is the cerebral spinal fluid that sits at the base of the spine, the sacral. So there's a potential that you'll activate that, and I mean that would be quite an awakening, quite a rush, if you will. So that's kind of what I look for and what I tend to push people towards. But oftentimes there's maybe a subconscious or like an underlying fear that would keep people from going to that. So I think, as you continue to get comfortable in the process and, with the way that you're feeling, because there's tetany, it's known as claw hands, where the oxygen is no longer free floating, it's binding to red blood cells. So like there's a freezing of the fingers and the lips and the ears that can happen just for a brief period. Right. So all of these kind of sensations, as you incorporate it into your sacred self practice, it's like it'll continue to, expand. You'll get more comfortable with it. And you mentioned something at the top of the show about, really moving into the unknown. So you get comfortable in that space of the unknown, because again, the thinking mind kind of goes dormant, and then it's like, there's this space that you begin to get comfortable navigating, and with that comfort, you'll be able to go deeper and deeper.
And what do you think the benefit is? I mean, this is a leadership podcast. I always feel like we have to tie it back. I mean, this is a great conversation about breath, and I'm fascinated. But what's the benefit to somebody in leadership to this kind of practice?
Well, it's if you think about when we're focused on the external world and really perceiving through the senses, right? We're focused on the external person, thing, deadlines, and what happens is the brain actually becomes very incoherent, very scattered. So, and obviously there's all the stress that comes into the body with that, and so when we actually employ the breath, what happens is we turn off the outside world, we bring coherence to the brain. It lowers the stress levels, and like I said, it lowers inflammation as well. And so you're increasing the alkaline, oxygen-rich environment. So disease can happen in that type of environment. Again, the thinking mind shuts down, so you're not like, in this like high alert, fight or flight kind of response all the time. So like a calm relaxation and full coherence comes back to the brain. So it's like, if we're always focused on the outside world and all these different things, that incoherence, you can think of it as only like certain sections of the brain firing. But when it comes into coherence, it's like the whole brain can kind of like work together. So, when you do go to do something, or you do go to, research something or get something done, again, as we said before, it's like more of you is able to come to the party. So you're more efficient, you're more energetic, you're more focused, you're, more streamlined.
It's fascinating. Thank you so much. And I want to just shift gears for a second because you're also a leader of your organization. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about, how you think of that leadership, what you think is important, anything you can, share with us just about your leadership journey.
It's really interesting because I feel like I've been stepping more and more into that. I have such a vision for unity, for humanity. I really feel like we're at such a transformational time where and I've been traveling for the last 7-8 years. I've been in Mexico for the last 2. I'm now in Colombia, and like what I've noticed through my period of travel is that, for lack of better terminology, all of the solutions to all of our world's problems are here, and there's literally it almost feels like 2 worlds. One of like freedom and connection and love, and like there are land and communities that are being built all over the world, and there's like new economies with utilizing like crypto and gold and silver and all of this stuff. And then there's kind of this old one that is, I feel like we're kind of creating a bridge to, and for me to step into this role or leadership capacity of like, I see this again, for lack of better terminology, this new world. I see all of the solutions. I've met so many and connected to so many solutionaries, and it doesn't matter what sector, if it's health and consciousness, land and communities, regenerative building, and infrastructure, you name it, it's here. And my mind always goes to, okay, like how do we actually connect the dots, put all the pieces together to create that bridge for everyone from the old world to choose. Do you want the old or do you want the new? And if you want the new, there's a way that you can get to that space through understanding, through total freedom and sovereignty, and reclaiming our rights to having more energy, to making more money, to doing what you love every single day. And so for me it's been a journey to actually step into that role and really feel comfortable in speaking like this. Because, at the end of the day, not everybody's ready to hear it, and not everybody's, so like actually being able to articulate it from a place of true authenticity and feeling, and knowing, by the experiences and the interactions and, all of the organizations and people that I've met over the last 8 to 10 years, during these travels, to say, hey, humanity, like it's time. Like we've got the solutions. And I know there's a lot of fear and different things like that, but, I love the quote, fear and faith both require us to believe in the unseen. So why not choose faith?
I think what you just said is really interesting. And I spent the day yesterday at a hot spring in New Mexico, which is where I am traveling right now. And I listen to people's stories because I'm super curious. And so I just ask people, about their lives all the time. And almost everybody I spoke to yesterday is living in some sort of recreational vehicle, traveling, and their reality is just so palpable. And my work is such that I can work remotely. So I have been doing some of that and trying to figure out what I want next. And so I spoke to my husband last night and I was like, well, we could just, get an RV and travel. And he was like, but I want my life to have some purpose. And I've been thinking about it ever since, because I don't think those people don't have purpose because they're traveling. And so what you're saying really resonates. It's like that question of what is purpose? What is contribution in the world? Because I think he would also say he wants to be contributing to the world. He's a scientist. and he might need a laboratory, and he might need a place to do experiments, but I don't. And so I'm just fascinated by this whole idea, and the idea that there's two worlds. I just had the thought as you were talking, I was like, wow, we actually have a nomadic culture right now in the world. Like, we have way more nomadic culture. And right now it's sort of inhabited by weirdos and retirees. But I think the more weirdos there are that choose it, then, and also are delivering value in the world. They're not stepping out of the world. They're stepping into the world. I think this is a really fascinating conversation and a really fascinating concept. That how do we continue to deliver value to the world and still have that sort of ultimate freedom of movement or ability to be nomadic while we do that? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I love that, and for me, it comes back to the self, right? That sacred self, that noble sense of self-firstness. To be able to continue to go on the journey, and I'm co-creating a structure right now. Think of it as like Uber for ascension, or like an infrastructure for ascension, where people can self-assess where they are on their own journey, right? So it'll be a series of questionnaires, and then once you've shared a little bit of your story of like, I'm going through this and don't really have any energy, and feel stuck in a job, or don't have a job, don't know what my purpose is, your site will populate with examples of an ever-expanding number of people that have gone through what you're currently going through. So it becomes an empowerment tool where all these stories are like, wow, like these people were just like me, like they did it, maybe I can do it. And then it'll connect you, and we're going to start with like the health and consciousness. It'll connect you with all of our partner organizations that have all of the solutions that you need, that have all of the products and services, whether it's mentoring and coaching, or detoxification, movement, breath work, meditation, mindset, right? And then that will unlock like your, I guess, the ability to move into the other societal sectors, if you will, right? So then you'll learn about new economies and crypto, and maybe be able to be connected with some really smart high-level investments that will allow you to generate more. And so as you go through this, the process, and your level of awareness and education grows for every sector from the new world, then it's like, that's where I feel like people will realize their purpose and how, like, the piece of the puzzle that they fit into and that they can contribute. So it's kind of like creating this, like I said, this bridge from the old to the new, and incorporates, freedom aspects as well. Like, how do we create protective mechanisms for our associations, for our property, which includes our body, our money, whereby, and this might be a little controversial, but whereby governments and revenue collection agencies cannot penetrate us. So things like churches and private trusts, and all these different things are really, really possible, and really coming to the forefront, within this kind of nomadic community, to say, hey, like we've been going this direction for a really long time. What happens if we start doing this, and really like taking radical responsibility for ourselves, for all of our own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and then gently, lovingly, authentically holding each other accountable when one of us veers off the track.
As a leader, when you're thinking of creating, some sort of intellectual property around this idea of ascension, how do you think about, I'm just curious how you think about, so your idea of ascension might be different than mine. How do you correct for that as you're developing or productizing, or doing something with that idea? I can see that you might have a path and I might have a path. Do you think about that as you create this, or is it an actual path? Do you leave room for individual preference or thought in your product?
Yeah, I really think so. That's a great question. And like to me, so I've really been doing like little campaigns on social media and stuff like that, talking about the higher laws, right? And really aligning ourselves. So there's a difference between man-made law and higher laws, you know, and like the law of love and what is true, or the law of polarity, or cause and effect, or you know. So there are these higher laws that really provide all of the material world with a mathematical and geometrical framework, you know, within which or from which everything is kind of created. And these laws are working in our lives anyways, right? So to me, it's like if we build a framework where we're educating around this, and each of us is doing our best to align with these laws that are already operating and actually like making them work for us, you know, working with them, then it really changes everything, you know, and you know, we'll come back into a high level of morality as well. Whereas I think, you know, humanity and man-made laws are, you know, maybe not in the highest alignment, because some people are able to do certain things and some people aren't. And it's like if something is unlawful for one, it should be unlawful for everyone. You know, so for me, it's like really kind of panning out and saying, okay, like, how can we align ourselves? How can we take full responsibility? How can we communicate that responsibility and express, you know, authentically our own laws as we move forward? And then it becomes, okay, I'm responsible for all of my stuff. You're responsible for all your stuff. And then between us, we're going to create agreement fields of like how we actually want to play together and what that looks like.
It's funny. I was just realizing the first time I heard that thought of the idea of taking responsibility for everything that happens in our lives. I was 18 years old. I was taking a undergraduate level climbing course as a PE class at the University of New Mexico. And I was driving to Los Alamos in a car listening to Cat Stevens with Omar, whose last name I don't remember. And Omar is like, well, you just take responsibility for everything you have that happens in your life. And I was like, well, what if somebody does this to you? Or what if some, you know, and it's something I completely believe now, that you get to choose how you respond to what happens in your life. And, but I do remember Omar and the Cat Stevens album as I heard that thought for the first time. And I do think it's an incredibly powerful truth to claim, because it can change everything for someone. I want to wrap up here, and I want to just ask you, where can people find you?
So probably the best two places on Instagram at 5D Breathwork. And then my website is Lee, L-E-E, at Lee-Davy.com. Sorry, that's my email. Lee-Davy.com is my
Great.
website.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so that people can find you. It's just really been a pleasure to dive into some ideas with you and to just hear your thoughts on, you know, a variety of things. And I loved getting to talk with you about, you know, breathing. It's so foundational and powerful. And so thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Melanie, so much. I really appreciate it. And as I said, I love what you're doing. I love what you're about. It was such an honor for me to be able to have this conversation with you as well. And I look forward to continuing to woo with you in some form or another.
Yeah, I think I'm going to come to your Tuesday class one of these days. That sounds pretty awesome. How do people find that? I should ask you that. Is that on your website? Where's the best way to find out about that?
It's actually a free, so it's a free thing that I started 2 years ago at the beginning of all the upside downness of the world. And it's just something that I wanted to continue to offer to people, once a week, if that's the time you're able to kind of disconnect and take for yourself. I wanted to be able to do that for people. And so it's at 2:22 Eastern time every Tuesday. And
where do people find a link, or where do they go to do that?
So I can actually share that with you in the chat right now.
Perfect. We'll put it in the we'll put it in the show notes,
Okay.
so that people can find it. And that's super exciting as well. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about how focusing on bottlenecks can transform your own leadership, check out my book, The Experimental Leader. You can get a copy at book.experimentalleader.com. I think you can magically transform your leadership by spending more time focusing on your bottlenecks and less time focusing on your challenges.
It's been a pleasure being here with you today. And I love talking with Lee Davy and about things as foundational as breath and how we can change that and change many things about us. It's been so fun to be here. Go experiment.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Experimental Leader. We hope you have found value in today's episode because we're dedicated to helping you become the experimental leader you want to be. To access the show notes or learn more about working with Melanie, visit melanieparish.com. Go experiment.